This is It Is Written. I'm John Bradshaw. Thanks for joining me for part 5 of our 5-part series, Conspiracy, More Than Just a Theory. We're looking at the greatest conspiracy of them all, the conspiracy to bring down the government of God and to cause planet Earth to fall finally and forever into the hands of a fallen angel. This conspiracy is actually quite easy to see through. But like most modern conspiracies, your ability to see this one for what it really is correlates with your desire to actually want to do so.
Look around the world. Standards are down. Violence is up. The amount of people in the United States who claim no religious faith at all has risen more than 250% in the last 25 years or so. While the internet can be a tool for great good, it's also a toxic wasteland. Morality as we used to know it has been turned upside down. It's evidence that there's something going on behind the scenes. There's a spiritual war taking place, a battle for the soul of every person alive. The Bible says in the book of Revelation, "Rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. The less time he has, the more furiously the devil works."
What that means for us today is that you have an increasing amount of people departing more and more from solid biblical principles. Now, you might expect that as knowledge increases, that as we march down through the stream of time, that people would actually trend towards believing what makes sense, what's true and what's accurate. But in this massive universe-wide conspiracy, that's not what's happening. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at another modern-day conspiracy theory. When I was a kid growing up, we had in our family home a globe. I was fascinated by that globe. Far-off countries and continents and vast oceans. And like every other globe I had or have ever seen, it was round. It was a representation of planet Earth, and it was spherical, like a ball. Every photograph that you have ever seen taken of planet Earth from outer space, and there have been countless thousands of them taken, shows that this Earth is round.
But in spite of what most would believe is scientific evidence, photographic evidence, eyewitness testimony, the Flat Earth movement is alive and well. It was on the brink of dying out when the internet was born. And with the advent of Facebook and then YouTube, there's no shortage of people willing to share their claims that the Earth is not spheroid.
A number of very high-profile people have come out and stated very publicly that they believe the Earth is flat. In fact, there's a surprising chorus of voices around the world stating that, in their opinion, the Earth is not a sphere. And why do they think that? Well, they believe it's all a conspiracy led by NASA and other government agencies. What about those photos that we've seen from space, just showing us, we thought, the Earth is round? Well, they say they're all fakes. So could it be true? Has NASA spent the last 60 years fabricating false research, staging fictitious missions, creating thousands and thousands of fake photos and videos, all in the name of a hoax? Not likely. In fact, no way in the world. You don't have to look very hard to find major holes in the flat Earth theory. But there are people just like you and me who believe it wholeheartedly. There's a reason I'm in beautiful Washington State. I've come here to talk to a man who is fully persuaded the Earth is flat. His name is Mark Sargent. Mark, let me begin by asking you this.
Yes.
How did you come to embrace the idea that the Earth is flat?
Boredom, sheer conspiracy boredom, and that is not a lie. And by that I mean, I was into just about every conspiracy you can think of. And I wasn't a tinfoil hat wearing, Ted Kaczynski type guy. I had an opinion on just about every conspiracy, and every conspiracy person knows about flat Earth, and they all hate it. It's terrible. Everyone knows it's like flat Earth. It's silly. It's ridiculous. And it was one of my bucket lists. It's like, okay, I can shut this thing down. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm going to look at flat Earth for the first time ever. And I clicked on a flat Earth video on YouTube and immediately had a visceral response to it. 9 months later, beginning of 2015, I was beside myself. I couldn't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. So I made a series of videos called the Flat Earth Clues, put them out to the internet. I said, you know what? The internet's smarter than I am. Tell me where I went wrong. And everybody came back and said, you know what? You may be onto something. Here we are, 4 years later.
So many people are going to say, here's the Earth.
Right.
It's a very small Earth if this was the Earth, but
right.
Here's the Earth. This is what we grew up knowing.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Explain to me how that
isn't
that.
Yeah, how is this globe not what we think it is?
Correct.
And I'll give you some short, the crib notes of this. Mainstream science says that we are exactly this. We're this tiny little rock covered by a thin sheen of water, which is covered by a thin sheen of smoky atmosphere that's spinning around the universe in 5 different directions, and we are absolutely meaningless. We have no purpose in life, and we're an accident. Flat Earth community says the exact opposite, that you're not this, that you're more something like this, which is a flat enclosed world with the North Pole at the center and the outer rim being made out of a continent called Antarctica, that we're covered in some sort of dome-like structure, that it was made by the Creator or God, and if it was made by the Creator, then we absolutely have purpose. And this is what all cultures believed in at one point. Up until really about 500 years ago, just about every culture you could think of drew this image instead of this. It was only science that came along later that changed it from this to this.
So why do you think science would have done that? The understanding, as I understand it, is that there are people who know the Earth is flat,
right.
Claim, however, that it is spherical. Why make that claim?
Well, 500 years ago, I can't exactly tell you why they said it, but what I'm saying here is that even our best and brightest, even our best scientists didn't know until about 1960 what the world actually looked like. So the big question is that if the best and brightest figured out in 1960, would they tell people? If they've been telling people for 500 years that it was this, they say mathematically, this is what it should look like, and then 500 years later in 1960, it's not this, but it's this. Would you tell people? No. No, you wouldn't, because at that point, the major institutions that you've built up over the last 5 centuries are in jeopardy. So you have to keep this a secret for as long as possible.
So you think that science just feels like it has too much to lose because it would be embarrassed about its last so many years of
way more
teaching?
Way more than that. What I'm talking about is threefold, meaning think about what would happen if all of a sudden the UN announced that, oh yeah, by the way, this is what it looks like. Think of what might happen. First thing would be academically. Every university in every country, we're talking astrophysics and astronomy would have to shut down tomorrow. And they would not reopen. The remaining physical sciences, geology, hydrology, biology, archaeology, you have to be retooled from the ground up. That's every university. That's just academically. Economically, world markets would have to shut down for several months just to figure out what this means exactly. You know, I mean, come on, if Donald Trump caught pneumonia tomorrow, the markets would react. Imagine what would happen if you showed them this. But the big thing is religiously, which is the 5 major religious houses of this world, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. You're all of a sudden giving them leverage against science, and you're asking them to show restraint. Not an easy thing to do, because science would come back and say, okay, so you were wrong about this. What else are you wrong about? Let's revisit things like carbon dating, evolution, the Big Bang Theory, dark matter. It goes on and on.
I'm really fascinated that you connect the flat Earth with creation,
yes.
And it seems that you connect the spherical Earth with Darwinism and evolution.
Yes. Yeah, very, very much so. Science built their institution off this icon. Everything that they do is based off of this. This is where this is their starting point.
So we've sent satellites to Jupiter and almost through the bands of Saturn and so on and so on.
Right.
What are they sending back? What are we seeing from the Hubble telescope?
You're seeing what they want you to see. And that's a great question, because what I mean is, every space story comes out, and we've been seeing a lot more of them recently over the last few years. Ever since we started doing our thing, there have been something what I call space beat stories. They don't care if you even read the article, all they want you to do is glance at the headline, because if you glance at the headline and you even register the words just for a second, it's all the same thing, and that is, hey, there's a thing on Mars that could be a face. Hey, there's a hexagon on Saturn. Hey, we're reclassifying Pluto, and so on and so on. It's all the same thing, and that is, you're on a globe. It's just reinforcement for the globe. They're trying to keep this as secret as long as possible, and it's only now starting to fall apart.
So are the other planets spherical?
They don't even exist. They're just lights in the sky. If you go to a planetarium and you look up at Jupiter and you have a pair of binoculars, well, does it make Jupiter more or less real? It's like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm in a building. It's like, yeah, who's to say when you walk out of that building, you're just walking into a much bigger one? That's all we're really talking about here, a giant Truman Show, a giant structure with walls and a floor and a ceiling.
As you were researching this, you said it took you 9 months to arrive at the position you now find yourself in.
Right.
What were the difficult questions where you said, oh, the round earthers have really got a good point here?
So on a flat earth model, for example, probably the weakest point we have, and it's not that weak because there's nothing we can do about it, is the Antarctic sun. Meaning if the sun and the moon are traveling around like mobiles above a child's crib, and the North Pole's at the center, well, the Antarctic coastline can't get 24 hours of sun unless you have multiple light sources or there's something going on with the light sources that we don't know about. And that wouldn't surprise me. Remember, the technology that we have now that we're using at this point is still not that advanced. We've only had HD televisions for 20 years. So the Antarctic sun is probably the worst, but compared to all the other points we have, doesn't even begin to balance the scales.
So tell me about the flat earth community. How big is this community?
It's huge. There's so many millions of people in this. I'm scared to even suggest the numbers. Meaning, and I didn't even know how big they were until a survey came out by a research company in Britain called U.gov. Not affiliated with us in any way. They were a scientific research company. They wanted to prove it for themselves. So they polled 10,000 Americans to see who was believing in this and who wasn't. And the number that really, really jumped out at them was the 18 to 24-year-olds, was a full third were believing in this model. And that's what has scared a lot of scientists, to where there were scientific people that were coming out and making articles saying, well, it's obvious that U.gov did bad research. It's like, what are you talking about? It's your guys. Why are you attacking your own team? It's like, well, they obviously did it wrong. The numbers can't be 30%, 34% for 18 to 24-year-olds. It cannot be. It's like, yeah, it is. I'm absolutely guaranteeing that, because not only am I talking to the 18 to 24-year-olds, I'm talking to the 12 to 17-year-olds. They're contacting me daily and trying to get me to do things with them.
Mark, thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So is the Earth flat? No, it isn't. But more and more people these days are believing that it is. So does it really matter what you believe? Well, yes, it does. I'll have more about that in just a moment.